All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the present tense of ER and IR verbs. That means someone does this activity or someone is doing this activity. So, thinking about AR verbs first, we remember conjugating AR verbs. Yeah, that's when we're dropping the AR and we're going to add different endings. So, AR verbs have the O, as, a, amos, an endings. Who's doing that verb? Today we're looking at ER verbs and the ER verb endings. In verbs like comer are o, es, e, hemos, es, en. You think this is just like AR verbs, except instead of o, as, a, amos, es, an, it's o, es, e, hemos, es, en. And that's correct. Now if we look at IR verbs, very similar. O, es, e, hemos, is, en. So those are exactly the same, except for nosotros and vosotros. So really, if we are focusing on our nosotros verbs, we're not in Spain, we don't need the vosotros, so that's really the only one that you're going to have to memorize, because the rest of them are the same. O, as, a, amos, an. O, es, e, hemos, en. O, es, e, hemos, en. So that's the one right up there, hemos. All right, so what you did here was simply circle some endings. We are looking for things like hemos and en. Oh, wait a minute. Look at that short verb. There we go. Leo, that's just the O. Y tú escribes, focusing on just those endings. Now, how do we know that these are verb endings? Well, because they're up here in the chart, highlighted in blue or green. O, es, e, hemos, en, or o, es, e, hemos, en. We have conjugated these verbs for the subject. Now, which subject, you might ask? What we do is we check out that ending, and we go up into our chart, and we find escribimos. Who does it? We do. Comparten. Who does it? Y'all do. Bebes. ¿Quién bebe? Tú bebes. ¿Quién corre? Looking up here, usted, él, or ella corre. So it's the same ending as come. She's not eating, she's running. Ella corre. También ven, that little tiny ending for that verb ver, to watch. Ellos ven. Yo leo, I read a lot. Leer is a fun verb to conjugate because we've got these two E's and they sound the same. So when we pronounce leer, leo, lees, we pronounce both of them. Lee. Here she reads lee. We read leemos, right? Ahora aquí tú escribes. ¿Comprendemos? Yeah, we understand. Who shares? I do. Yo comparto. Y usted ve. Same as él and ella. We don't forget that usted is here with él and ella with that third person singular. All right. So, conjugating verbs, that means we're dropping endings. If we take a look at the next page, we've got present tense of ER and IR verbs. It is your job to try and conjugate. So what happens, we're going to flip back and forth, or else you're going to do like I do. And you're going to write your chart right up here. O, es, e, hemos, en. Told you we're not going to see any vosotros. We also need to remember that with the IR verbs, it's going to be o, es, e, hemos, en. So the rest of them are the same, ER and IR verbs. So I want you to pause the video and work on parts C and D. When you have those done, come back and check. All right, I hope you're back. Yo bebo agua. Nosotras corremos, no hay mucho espacio. Ella comprende, tú leyes, ustedes comen, nosotros leemos unos libros. Now with some IR verbs, tú escribes, él comparte, escriben. We see the same endings here. Yo comparto, nosotros. Wait a minute, here's the nosotros form, and we saw that nosotros is not going to be hemos, it's going to be imos. Y aquí también imos. Right, so always checking in on those nosotros forms with ER and IR verbs, knowing that they are a little different. All right, we're doing the same thing in part E. This time you need to drop the ER or IR, and then you need to add the appropriate ending. So, first thing I would do would be to look at the ER and IR and just make sure I know where those are, what is coming off when we conjugate. Luego I am going to use the same chart from up here, coming up with tiny little sentences. And they are sentences because you have a subject and a verb. Yo leo. Nosotros spelling it wrong. Yo escribo mal. Escribimos, right? So make sure you're keeping the verb stem the same, spelling it correctly, and then adding the correct ending from our verb charts here. We'll do one more. Do you share? Compartes, right? So you don't have a whole lot of space here. Of course, I write kind of big. Y luego down in part F, writing even longer sentences, this time with a little bit more content. But we're still looking for those verbs, and we are going to conjugate all of these. So we look at something like number 4, nosotros, comer French fries. We eat French fries. So subject pronoun, comer becomes comemos. Papas fritas, the period's already there, so we don't need to add. So what are we checking? We got to make sure that we have that verb conjugated. So we're dropping that ER and we're adding the right ending. Some of you missed this on NTI 7. Let's go ahead and do one more. Una carta, that is a letter. Who's writing a letter? Well, she is. Ella escribe una carta. All right, so you are going to finish this page, writing these little sentences. All right. Luego on page 15, I'm going to walk you through this here. First, we are conjugating fully. The yo form is always going to be o endings. And then tu form is es, regardless of what the verb is. And then here, in. Now, why did I skip nosotros, nosotras? Because for ER verbs, it's going to be hemos. But for IR verbs, imos. So we can finish these verbs, conjugating them fully by putting them back together with the verb stem. We've dropped the ER. Yo como, tú comes, él, ella, usted come, nosotros comemos, ellos comen. Sigamos. Beber, drinking. We drop the ER. Bebo, bebes, bebe, bebemos. They drink, beben. Comprendo, comprendes, comprende. I don't have enough space. Comprendemos, comprenden. So we are dropping that and adding the verb stem. Escribir. Yo escribo, tú escribes. Ella, él, usted escribe. We're scribbling. Escribimos. Yo escribo. Finally, compartir to share. This is really important. Comparto, compartes, comparte, compartimos. Okay, I just don't have enough space here. All right, how do we know which one to use? All right, so we're thinking about what do we know about these verbs? Maybe we can use a color coding system. We are eating something. Comer. Now, papas fritas is here, but I see this con Emilia, so we're going to skip that. Here we've got food. Food. All right. Beber. Looking for drinks, beverages. Beber. 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 All right, what else? Comprender, to understand. What do I understand? What do I comprehend? French fries? No. Homework. What else do we understand? Español. All right. Escribir. We're writing. When we write a letter to the professor? Sure. We write bread? No. Con un lápiz? Oh, sí. All right, so we've got a couple items left. One verb, compartir, one of my favorite verbs in the whole world, and that means to share. Now, how do I know that these people are sharing something? Right here. Con Emilia, con Jorge, con Susana. So compartir is actually compounded from con, which means with, and partir, which is to split. So if we add those together, we would get compartir, and many languages, including Spanish, can't have that N next to an M, a P, so it just changes to an M. Compartir, it still means to split with. To split with is to share. So we're sharing the cookies, we're splitting them with Susana, we're sharing our bread with Jorge, and el pan, to share bread. To share bread, con pan. You know what that gives us? Company, with whom we share our bread. It's like keeping company with Jorge. Kind of cool how that one works too, one of my favorites. Anyway, so Antonio shares his papas fritas with Emilia. So we find our verb is compartir, and here is Antonio, he's a he. So I'm just gonna go on down here to comparte. Yeah, I can fit it here. Plenty of space down here. Comparte sus papas fritas con Amelia. And if we look at number 4, el té, helado, what do we do with that? Well, we drink it. Bebemos. How do I know it's bebemos? I went right here to the chart. All right. Speaking of that chart, I'm going to see if I can't squeeze in. Comprende. Comprendemos. Comprenden. All right. Now it is complete. Ooh. Compartimos. We share. Yeah. Anyway, you're going to attempt all these items. Ooh, got one more here. I'm going to help you guys out. So we know they understand it. How do I know it's they? Paula y Guillermo, 2 people. We have one ella and we have one él. We put them together. They are an ellos. They speak and they understand Spanish, or comprenden. So remember, we are dropping the ER or the IR, adding the correct endings. You can always flip back and see on the chart on page 13. Complete all 3 packages.